Hello, everybody. This is Sri. You're on BizBuzz. What matters the most for your small business? Sponsored by My Work Belt. My Work Belt is a on all-in-one software for service-based, particularly service-based small businesses. For those small business, please check it out. www.myworkbelt.com. And today who is a trained, who is a master in thing and helping small, mid-sized law operations all across on being able to sell high-ticket, high-trust items. Great doing.
Sri, I'm doing wonderfully. We spent so much time in the green room. I wish everybody could have heard everything we were talking about. We probably should have hit record 25 minutes ago. But it's always such a delight to speak with you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. Now, I heard Texas is being cold. In Texas.
So winter in Texas, normally it shows up for 2 weeks at a time, but not two consecutive weeks. It'll
Mm-hmm.
get legitimately cold.
Yeah.
And by most standards, maybe springish by Michigan standards, but
Right.
it will get cold, and then the next week it will be back in the 60s. Well, we're entering our fourth week, non-consecutive week of cold, and it's supposed to get down in the teens this week, and which is um, hard because we're not used to that weather.
All those in Texas stay warm. We should stay warm.
Well,
Michigan, we are used to the cold, so we kind of figured out how to survive in the cold.
and it's funny in the South. I've lived in the South all of, pretty much all of my adult life. When I haven't lived overseas, I've lived in the South. And it's funny because up north, when it gets cold, you just put on different layers and you go in a building and you don't expect it to be 75 degrees inside. You expect it to be, a little chilly and you just pull off a layer or two.
Yes, yes.
Well, if you dress like that and come into a building in the South, you're going to start sweating. You're going to have to strip down to your underwear because it's hot. We
I
we
know,
can make it in.
I know. That's funny. So coming back to topics today, so we were talking about change of environment leads to improve the productivity.
Yeah.
So now we also talked about sometimes you are working in your own office at your home. It's been be prominent during and after COVID. How about going from home office to work somewhere in a shared space just to have a improvement? And that seems to be leading better productivity by just simply moving yourself and your laptop into an environment in a coffee shop or in a shared space. What is your take on that?
Oh, I'm an absolute believer. And as a matter of fact, last Friday I was working in a co-working space I often go.
Hmm.
And and I'll contrast, I was doing some work this morning and I was doing some work Friday. And in this co-working space, it's funny. I'll start working on something and then where I sit is right by a door, and I'll go outside and I'll walk around the building. And
Hmm.
usually before I get one lap in, whatever problem I was trying to solve, I was looking
Hmm.
for some wording for something. All of a sudden, I know how to word it. I come back in, I type it out, then I get up and I go for another walk.
Hmm.
And by the time I come back, I type it in. And I guess I could do that when I'm working out in my home office, but I was working on something today, and it took me at least an hour and a half to do what I was doing today. And if I'd been at the co-working space, I probably could have done it in 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. So that's a big difference, one third of time,
Yeah.
and to times the productivity just by moving from your home office to a co-working space. I mean, obviously, that's not going to be the case. Every day you go to co-working space, then naturally that becomes your home environment, right?
Right.
Then you have to come back to other place. So once in a while, strategically, or once in a while, randomly, you change the environment to increase the productivity by your experience. That's great. How the group environment?
I would say the same thing. I mean, so, the whole concept of an offsite became popular years ago. And and I think a lot of people unfortunately viewed it as an opportunity to stay at a nice hotel and go to a nice resort
Abuse,
center
abuse.
and have the company pay for it, which I think what I would say is if if the value that you got out of that time there, was greatly exceeded the cost of
Mm-hmm.
that event, then it was probably a success. But it needs to be intentional. It can't be offsite just for the purpose of offsite.
It,
So
it it gives me an example. Come to my one of my friend. She owns a business with 10, 15 employees, service-based business. They are implementing EOS, Employers Operating System, um, I say, which is a pretty popular and widely used approach in Michigan, at least. I know. I'm not sure how is it in Texas or anywhere else. So it's part of that exercise. Uh, Implementer will come to you and with your team all day long in front room and who is doing what and changing the role and responsibilities and taking the feedback and all that. But my friend, what she did is she took all of the team and put that conference in condo or not condo, I should say. It's a home up in the north of Michigan where nothing is there. It's all inside in the woods, in the middle of the woods. Right? It's more or less a vacation home for her. But the way she described it, by the end of the whole size, it is twice the productivity that they were able to do opposed to what they could do in the conference room in the office.
yes.
And I was like, really, how is it possible? It's just a change of environment.
So it disrupts patterns in your head.
Yes, yes.
And so when I do strategies with clients, so
Mm-hmm.
when we bring on a new client, I insist that we meet. If they come to me, I have a space that I use that's set up more like a living room. If
Right.
I go to them, I insist, hey, we can't hold this in your
Mm-hmm.
regular meeting space. If we sit around the same conference table, that, people come to me because they're looking for new and different ideas. And it's like, if we go back to the same conference table where you came up with the old ideas, chances are the new
I'm going to
ideas
get the
will
old
look like
ideas.
look like the old ideas. And so it's about disrupting patterns. And we spoke on Friday, and I told you the biggest challenge, the hardest thing I would do that day was remember to stop at the grocery store on the way home from the co-working space to get a new 5-gallon jug of water. And the reason that would be the hardest is I have burned into my brain a pattern of I get in my car, I drive down 620, I drive on Bee Cave Parkway, then I turn left and I come home. And that's the pattern. And we start working on autopilot. It's our brain consumes massive amounts of energy. And so our brain looks for ways of shortcutting things so we don't burn more energy. And so it's a pattern, just, we fall into these patterns, and so many people have done it. I'm sure you've done it, where you've promised to stop at the store on your way back, on your way home, and you drive right by the store.
Right by the store, go home, and then, oh, duh, I forgot about
Yeah.
it.
And so when we go to this cabin that you mentioned for the EOS implementation, or, for my clients, when we go somewhere different, we're disrupting patterns. And And I'm very intentional about it. I do some very specific things.
Hmm.
One of the things is when I'm doing a full day strategy day, I usually bring several bottles of wine, and I will open the first bottle of wine by 10 a.m.
That's really scary.
Well, and the reason I do this is
What do people
everybody
drink though?
thinks I'm breaking a rule. I'm
Yes.
intentionally breaking a rule that you don't have alcohol until at least lunch.
Uh,
And so I was doing a strategy session with one group, and it was such a large group we had to be around conference table. And it
mhm.
was interesting. Everybody was frozen. I could just feel the tension in the room. We were
Mm,
not
mm,
breaking
mm,
through to new ideas. So that morning, I think it was probably 9 or 9:30. I looked at everybody and I said, "Look, I have to apologize. This conference table is holding us back. It has us thinking in the wrong mindset.
mhm.
So, but we can't get rid of that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open the wine early." And I went and one of the bottles of wine that I brought, and it's one of my favorite ones to bring, is called Freak Show. That's the
Big
name of
shot.
the wine. And so I opened it, and all the eyeballs were wide open. I think I heard a gasp, and I opened Freak Show and I put it on the middle of the table. Nobody would let me pour them a drink. But just by doing that one measure, disrupting that pattern, all of a sudden ideas started flowing.
That's right. That's right. Oh, great. Thank you very much for your story. Very interesting story, but at the same time, there's a lesson to learn from it. Um, Craig, always pleasure talking to you. Always I learn something new when I'm talking to you. And for the audience, those who are listening, hope you recognize the power of breaking the patterns as Craig described it. Changing the environment when you are working by yourself in the home and just want to go work in a shared space, or if you are taking a conference and instead of doing the conference every time you take the key to somewhere else and have them do it, and you can witness the change in the pattern and the productivity improvement along.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that and greatly appreciate your time. And listeners, please subscribe and share these ideas with your friends in the business.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sri.